In winter 2022 to 2023, people froze to death in their beds. At the same time, Shell made more money than in any year since they were founded and paid you less than the price of a chocolate bar, while they paid £1,171 per Norwegian citizen. British citizens got just 22 pence, while 4,950 people died from cold homes.
Oil giant Shell made its biggest ever profit last year, almost $40 billion. The figure is one of the highest profits ever posted by a British company.
This is how Shell turned your pain into their biggest payday in over 115 years, during our worst energy crisis in decades. Beyond the corporate greed, this is systematic profiteering from national suffering, and the numbers will shock you. February 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. Global energy prices explode. UK households face a 54% increase in energy bills overnight, £693 extra a year. But this was only the beginning. October brought the real horror.
Well, the conflict in Ukraine and the sanctions on Russia have led to another surge in the cost of oil and gas.
Energy bills set to hit £3,549 annually. 8.9 million households suddenly couldn't afford to heat their homes. According to Citizens Advice, over 27,000 people couldn't top up their meters, and an estimated 3 million people sold possessions just to keep the lights on. But while Britain froze, Shell was about to announce something extraordinary. $39.9 billion in annual profits, the largest in their 115-year history, more than double their previous year, £109 million per day, every single day. And when The Sun asked CEO Ben van Beurden how he justified such profits while Britons faced rising bills, his response, "We cannot perform miracles." I'm very mindful that's a difficult message to hear, but it is what it is. What it is was a 53% pay rise to £9.7 million for Van Beurden, 294 times the UK median salary. His bonus alone could have paid the energy bills for more than 1,200 average households. But Shell's ultimate triumph wasn't their profits, it was how they avoided paying for them. Despite £32 billion in global profits, Shell paid just 15 million to the UK. That's 22 pence per British citizen. This wasn't an accident. Shell's CFO, Sinead Gorman, explicitly revealed their strategy to investors. They were investing more heavily and therefore didn't have profits to be taxed against. The question is, was this increased investment driven by business needs or strategic capital spending timed specifically to trigger tax relief? But how is this even possible? The UK government introduced a windfall tax in 2022, 25% on excess oil profits, later raised to 35%. On paper, Shell should have paid billions, but Shell's accountants found something buried in the legislation, the 91% investment allowance loophole. For every £1 Shell invested in North Sea projects, they could claim back 91 pence in tax relief. Shell's lobby group, Offshore Energy's UK, held over 200 meetings with UK ministers in the 12 months following the Russian invasion. Result? The windfall tax gets watered down with investment loopholes. In June 2022, as the tax was being drafted, Shell's meetings doubled from 15 to 29. The 91% investment allowance gets written into law, and the Treasury Secretary overseeing the policy was none other than Charles Roxburgh, Shell's former board member who, coincidentally, rejoined their board in 2022. Shell pays virtually nothing in taxes, while your energy costs more and more. Shell got exactly what they lobbied for, investment allowances just short of £12 billion industry-wide. The Institute for Fiscal Studies later condemned these as indefensibly generous tax subsidies. Tax Justice UK estimated this loophole costs taxpayers £2 billion annually. Meanwhile, Shell faced significantly higher windfall tax rates elsewhere, 78% in Norway, 75% in Ireland, 70% in Slovakia. But the UK maintained the lowest rate, with loopholes that made even this meaningless. So Shell made record profits from a crisis that killed nearly 5,000 people who couldn't afford to heat their homes. And according to reports, they lobbied the government to create tax loopholes, then exploited those loopholes by paying virtually nothing back to the country that gave them those profits. But the human cost, that's where the story is truly indefensible. 4,950 excess winter deaths from cold homes, 45 people a day during the coldest months. For Sarah, a single mum in Manchester, that meant boiling water in a kettle to bath her kids and sleeping in one room to save heating costs. Adam Scorer from National Energy Action summed up the human impact. Behind these figures, are people we hear from every day, people in crisis, sacrificing hot meals or showers to afford a warm room. At the same time, Shell announced £4 billion in share buybacks and 15% dividend increases, while Ofgem reported £3 billion in consumer energy debt, the highest ever recorded. 38,111 people couldn't afford to top up their prepay meters in 2023. They spent £12.5 billion on new oil projects versus just £4.3 billion on clean energy solutions. Integrated gas trading and refining operations delivered record profits, their best performance ever, as European gas shortages and rising fuel prices drove exceptional margins during market volatility. The End Fuel Poverty Coalition documented families forced to choose between heating their homes and feeding their children. Meanwhile, Van Beurden used company housing allowances to shop for London mansions. His total 2022 compensation package was virtually identical to the £15 million Shell paid in total UK taxes, despite billions in profits. Shell turned Britain's energy crisis into their most profitable year in over a century. But what makes this truly infuriating is the windfall tax loopholes remain wide open today. Without those loopholes, Shell should have paid £8 billion in windfall taxes, money that could have insulated over 2 million homes. Norway used their windfall tax to fund energy programs. Italy used theirs to directly reduce household bills. But Britain, we gave Shell a tax break for drilling more oil. But even in Q2 in 2024, another £6.3 billion in profits, just £127 million to the UK. They've turned crisis profiteering into a business model, all with our government's blessing. This isn't just about Shell, it's about the system that chooses corporate profits over human survival. When Britain freezes, they get richer. And Shell isn't alone. Britain's water companies have pulled the same trick, extracting £72 billion in dividends while pumping sewage into our rivers. If you want to see just how deep Britain's corporate capture really goes, hit subscribe and don't miss what's coming next.